series, I've introduced you to my philosophy or my approach to healthy living. And I've discussed the 3 elements that I think really contribute to a healthy lifestyle. So we've looked at diet, nutrition, we've looked at exercise or movement, and we've looked at some positive lifestyle habits where we've particularly spoken to 2 experts, one on looking at mindset, and the other one just discussing your actual your approach and participation in your own healthcare. So, but with each series, I've said I plan to include discussing or sharing with you a product or perhaps a service that I found personally to be useful, or one that I've just noticed that sort of has some input or can really help with those aspects. And one of those products is the FitnessGenes DNA analysis kits. And with me today to talk about that is Alex Auld from FitnessGenes. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Michelle.
So Alex is the UK communications manager. Is that right?
Yeah, communications, also managing some of the partnerships that we have both here in the UK and the US as well.
And you're currently at the offices in Paddington, which is in London. But your CEO, Dr. Dan Reardon, is based in the States. Is that correct? So where's the headquarters, or isn't there really?
Yeah, so we're a UK-based company. We started in Oxfordshire and then we moved down to Paddington about December 2015. So the team's based here. We still have a presence in Bicester as well, but a lot of our customers are based in the US.
So I came across you, I think it's about a little over 2 years ago now, and I had already been looking then to include DNA testing in our already quite comprehensive health screening with our clients here at the Personal Training Centre. And I had failed to date at that point to come across one that suited our needs really, because a lot of them at the time, and there are still a lot of that do these, were sort of ancestry based or disease risk based, and I didn't like that. That certainly, while I see that's absolutely useful in the right hands and certainly medical hands particularly, I just didn't feel that suited my needs. And then of course I came across FitnessGenes, and one thing that I loved about it, of course, is that it tests only against your DNA sample is only tested against genes that have a bearing on your physiological and nutritional traits. So physical and nutritional traits. So perfect for the kind of work I was doing. And then on top of that, what of course was so attractive was because up until, I've been in the industry for nearly 20 years, and any sort of lab testing before always had to go through a medical professional. Even if when they then became accessible and you didn't need to be a medical professional, you would just get this report without any interpretation. And so what I liked was just the whole ease of use, and also they would only ever give the results to the client, who then it was a hassle getting them to share it to you. And while I understand the reasons for that process, it was never easy. And I guess technology has helped that, but also the kit just so easy to use. So just explain what's in this little box, Alex, and what comes out of it that I've really enjoyed so much.
Sure. So we collect the DNA by a saliva sample. So we're not actually,
one of the vials here.
Yeah. So we're not actually analysing an individual's saliva, but we're analysing the DNA that's contained within their cheek cells. So cheek cells break off quite naturally throughout the course of the day and are always present in your saliva. So we gathered the DNA that way. And as you'll see on the test tube, what we include is a buffer solution, so that once an individual provides a sample, a buffer solution is added to stabilise the DNA whilst it's being transported back to our lab.
And free post, I must add. Well, certainly in the UK, it's free post. I don't suppose when it's coming from Australia, it's free post.
Yeah, so it's prepaid return solution for UK and US. So the majority of our clients, the postage back to our lab is prepaid. And then once it gets to our lab, we extract the cheek cells from the saliva, expose the DNA, and that's how we create our genetic reports, recommendations, and any workout plans that our clients choose to follow as well.
So first, let me just say, what's also good about the collection of the soil, I mean, it's just spitting, which is it's actually not as easy as you think. You've really got to bring the spit forward, but it is far easier than, for instance, providing a urine sample or anything like that. It's fast.
So your DNA is consistent in pretty much every cell in your body, apart from sex cells that have half the information. So it wouldn't matter if we were testing your hair, your blood, your cheek cells, we're going to get the same result. And we find that doing a saliva sample is the most non-invasive way of doing that.
Yeah, well, that is exactly
that type of thing. So it's a way of actually gathering it.
Yeah. Okay. So then you said it comes back to your lab, and is it so the labs are based in the UK?
The lab is based in Europe, so we used to do all of the testing in-house ourselves. When we first started out, it was actually the founders were doing it, taking the individual samples and running it through a testing process. But as the company's grown, we've had to sort of relocate that testing process. So we're using a testing lab based in Europe at the moment. And that just gives us the flexibility. As new technology emerges, we can pick up on it and include new results and that type of thing.
Yeah, well, so that's one of the big things for me has been that there's also a connection with your lab. And actually, you mentioned there about the founders. Dr. Dan Reardon's the one I spoke about before. I know he was one of the co-founders. He's certainly the face of it, as it were. But there were genetic scientists involved and nutritionists. So everybody who is really close to it, who really understands it. It wasn't some thought-up idea, a process bought from there, and sort of put together.
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to think of ourselves as a science-centric company, and that's reflected in sort of the specialities of the co-founders. So we've got Dr. Dan, as you mentioned, who's a medical doctor by background. We've got Dr. Stuart Grice and Dr. Sam de Combel, who are both PhD geneticists by background. And also we've got Mark Gilbert, who's a specialist in nutrition and supplementation. So sort of the idea of the company came from conversations between those four. So we come from a science-centric background, and then trying to make that research and science accessible to the general public. So rather than being a team of sort of entrepreneurs or marketeers who are just using this technology to try and make a bit of money off the back of it, we've always been science-centric at the core, and we try and remain as true to that science core as possible as well.
Absolutely, that's been my experience with you as well, with working with a company. But so it's also fair to say, before we go into what happens like with your results and all of that, it's worth mentioning, and I do this with clients where I've used it, is that the genetics is what we're testing here, and what comes out, as it were, is your predisposition, right? I remember when we first met, in fact, one of the way you explained it was that, whatever you're going to discover here, for example, it doesn't mean that if you don't have the gene for it, or you don't have the predisposition to it, you can't do it, as it were. And one of the things you explained, that is, if somebody, for instance, came in and said like they'd like to bulk up or really get into bodybuilding, but didn't necessarily show to have the genes for, say, muscle volume in a big, doesn't mean to say that that person should walk away. It just means that they do it slightly differently, right?
Absolutely. So all of the results and the recommendations we provide are goal-driven. So we're not sort of in the business of telling people what they can and can't do. What we want to do is help people achieve their goal as efficiently as possible. And we do that by looking at their genetic markers. So rather than saying your genes don't suggest you're good at bodybuilding, maybe you should think about sort of long-distance running. We let the client define their goal first, and then we look at their genetic markers and then use that as a blueprint to suggest the strategies that are going to help them reach that goal as efficiently as possible.
Which is fantastic ethos, but what I found in practice, which has been so interesting, is that in general, most people are drawn to the kind of things that they're genetically slightly predisposed to anyway. So I take myself as an example. I came out as and when you do your own testing, you get what I'm saying, but just take me at my word for this. But it came out that I'm more predisposed to middle distance running. Now, I would have said to you before all of this that I'm not a sprinter, and I'm not interested in running a marathon. Now, is that, you kind of go, is that nature nurture? Is that because innately I know that actually I'm not really, of course I could run a marathon. If I trained for one, I could run one. Is that because innately I know that I'm not really genetically built for that? Or is that something driven by something else? So but it wasn't only with me that I found that. I found that with other clients too, but it's also worked in the other way, where it's just in general, obviously it's more specific than this, but in general, it's been interesting to see people get either an explanation, so like that example with me, oh, that's why I've always preferred running no more than 10, 12K, you know, that kind of thing. Or there's been quite a bit of reassurance or encouragement. I've got a client who, she's part of my group training class, and sometimes when we go out running, she's often at the back. I do all the encouraging, come on, push a little harder, and she won't give any more. She's happy to sit on the thing or rest on the laurels about, oh, I'm not particularly good at running. We did the genetic testing. She came out as endurance athlete on like every level. And I turned to her and I said, but you see, I can tell you, training has never been that easy now with her. When we go, if I say to her, push a bit more, she gives a bit more. It's like she's been given permission to. And I've seen this with a lot of the women that I train, and for lots of other reasons, you know, women either fall out of exercise or sport perhaps when they're younger. And so are never really aware of their potential. And suddenly now, at adult stage, you're presenting them with genes and say, well, you could have been a sprinter, you could have been this, you could have been that. They're going, wow, my God, do I possess that? So it's quite empowering in that respect, which has been quite fun.
Yeah, I think you pick up on quite a few interesting points there, Rochelle. And first of all, it does seem that a lot of our clients fall into two different camps, if you like. The first are people that are really looking to get back into their fitness. Maybe they've let other priorities get in the way and they've got a bit out of shape, or this is sort of the start of their journey and they're looking for something super personalised for them because they want to make sure what they're doing is right for them. And a lot of the recommendations and insights are really sort of the basis that they're going to build upon. And then on the other side, we've got people who've been training for a number of years. They've really worked out what works for them. And a lot of the information is sort of just confirming that. But even with those people, I've sort of never sort of sat down and gone through results, and there hasn't been sort of a few genes or a few recommendations where they have said, oh, I've never even really sort of thought of that before. Or things like caffeine metabolism, for example. It's not really something people are too aware of. And even if they are, it's perhaps something that they don't test with. So if we're able to provide insights on those type of things where we can confirm a few things. So I call those sort of like light bulb moments where they sort of realise where they sit on certain insights. Empowerment as well, and that's certainly something that we've seen. So we've got one gene that we look at called FTO, which we refer to as the obesity gene. And one of the sort of variations of this gene, what we call alleles, is the A-risk allele. And if you carry one copy of the A-risk allele, research has shown that you're 1.3 times more likely to be overweight or obese, whereas if you have two variations, you're 1.6 times more likely to be overweight or obese, and that's when you remove lifestyle factors and that sort of thing. So that's just looking at your genetic makeup. But what we found is, well, what we expected is when people found out if they have this obesity risk, it's like, oh, well, that's it, sort of game over. It's built into my DNA. There's nothing I can do about it. But instead, what we found is that actually finding out that there is something sort of to blame other than their sort of eating behaviour. So it's actually become quite an empowering tool, telling them, look, this is something that you're fighting against, but it's something that you can overcome as well if you deploy certain strategies. So, yeah, great example of a client of yours, and it's certainly something that we've picked up on with a lot of clients as well.
Exactly with that one, I've had a few clients, including myself. I have the obesity gene, and what you end up seeing is that, which was the next point I was going to make up, point out, was to remember that genes are only part of the equation. The rest is obviously lifestyle and environment. And so, perfect example, right? So I have the obesity gene. I'm obviously not obese, but you go, maybe that, thank God, because of the lifestyle I've chosen, because I'm in fitness, in training, all of that. Perhaps I imagine if I had chosen another career or another type of environment or anything like that, I could well have sort of really, demonstrated that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, we've sort of got a saying here at FitnessGenes, and I mean, wider than FitnessGenes, that it's genetics that load the gun, but it's your lifestyle that pulls the trigger. So you can have great genetics for, I don't know, being a really good endurance athlete or muscle building, but unless you deploy certain strategies and a certain lifestyle to actually fulfill that, then you're never going to see sort of the results of those genetics. And then the same with you, with the FTO risk allele. Obviously, your lifestyle and the way you structure your training and nutrition has overcome that risk, but there are certain that will carry that obesity variation and not have the same lifestyle, and it may be actually put them at risk of being overweight and all the health risks that come with that as well. So yeah, lifestyle is as important as sort of your genetic markers, and that is something that we do take into consideration with our reporting. reporting. So all clients fill out a
life positive slant on it. Absolutely, the results when we get them, and we'll go through that and say. But just that whole thing reminds me of that. There's a saying I think that goes that success is down in whatever is down to sort of 90% turning up, and the rest is down to talent, right? And it's a similar thing. Is that maybe that's not quite the ratios, but certainly the genetics can be there. You can have all the genetics set for it to being a top athlete, but if you don't go out and train and put the work in, it's not going to happen. Similar concept, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we like to make all of our recommendations as actionable as possible, because we can deliver sort of the information on the genetic variations, and we find it incredibly interesting, and we hope our clients find it incredibly interesting as well, but there's no guarantee of that. So we want to make sure that all of our clients are using all of their genes to maximum effect. So that's why we provide all of the actual insights and recommendations that we do on top of the gene results and reports.
I mean, so on that, so once you've sent off your sample, you sent it off, you've registered your barcode, because there's a little barcode on the vial, you've registered that online. You then get an email to say we've received your sample, and then you get email, your results are in the members area, and you can access those. And is there 41, 42 genes that you
we've managed to increase it slightly recently, so we've changed to a new testing panel at the start of this year. So previously we were looking at about 41 single nucleoside polymorphisms, and that's really small parts of genes.
Okay.
Where variations occur. We've actually just changed to a new testing panel which analyzes 700,000, of which we're not reporting on all that information, but what that means is that we've got a bank of genetic data on our clients. So as our research progresses, we can just pull information from that sort of bank of data, build literature around it, and add it into our reporting. So at the moment we have, I think it's increased to around 48 gene results and recommendations, but there are more genetic data sets that we're actually using within our algorithms that produce things like the recommendations on training frequency, training volume, macronutrient ratios, and that type of thing.
Because so when you go into there, you can access, and this is you can access each sort of result against those 42 genes, and you can see the different things. But that is really detailed, very scientific. It's not difficult to understand, but it's quite wordy. But what you've done, which was so fantastic then, is kept that, which I think is important, because that it's still useful to see it in that in depth. But then you've then done a sort of overview where you give the sort of personal insights. So then you go, right, well, great, Rochelle, what does that mean for you? You should be training this often, this sort of frequency, this sort of thing. And you divide that into nutritionally, sort of around your workouts, and so nutrition, exercise, and then obviously lifestyle factors. And with the nutrition element, you go into a breakdown of your macronutrients. So that's, when anyone who doesn't know, that's your proteins, carbs, and fats, saying that's X amount of calories you should be consuming. Again, based on what I entered as my original goal, right? So whether it was weight loss to tone, or because that'll change depending on that. And then, so that's X amount of calories. And then the breakdown of my macronutrients. Now, the one thing at first that struck me when I saw this, I thought, oh, I'm not a big fan of calorie counting. But there's a few things here. What's good is you break it down into the macronutrients. So, because most people struggle with, if you say to them X amount of calories, they'll just go, okay, whatever, 10 apples equals that's calories, off you go. The macronutrient breakdown really gives you an idea to make you look at what you're eating, and also gives you a better idea of portion size, which is probably a bigger area where people struggle with, rather than what they're eating. I mean, I know this with most clients. Most clients know where they're going wrong, but then often it's just tweaking the amounts. And so that I thought was really useful, the breakdown of the macronutrients.
Yeah, so with the nutrition guides, we look at the total calorie intake, which is based on a number of genetic markers, lifestyle information you provide, so current body type, overall goal, that type of thing, to produce that recommendation. And then we've got the macronutrients. So that's presented as percentages, but also goes down into grams per macronutrient as well. So you can really sort of take it on three different levels. You can take the macronutrients as sort of general percentages. So it might be 50% carbs, 30% protein, 20% fat, and just trying to get near those numbers would maybe a good start for some people.
Yeah.
Then we can take it another level deeper and get it closer to the specific percentages that we've actually recommended. So it might be 48%, it might be 32%, and then the remainder I'll do. And then the third level will be trying to hit the specific grams per macronutrient that we've recommended. So for a lot of our clients, just trying to get near to those percentages is a good starting point for them, because perhaps it isn't.
You're very responsibly in the wording they say, look, these are ballpark figures. So I don't think it's irresponsible in any way, but I just wanted to highlight that because that was one of the things that struck me. And then I looked at it, and also the platform you're on, you're not sitting face to face, so you have to prescribe, and people like to follow something, and I think it's far healthier in that respect, in the way you've done it, rather than a day one, this is what you're having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then the end of those 7 days you go, what, am I just going to repeat those meals again? You start to interact with what's in your meal, and you get a better understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we say in regards to nutrition is that although we make these recommendations, it's not absolutely essential that you hit them exactly every single day, but over sort of a 7-day period, we want to make sure that you're sort of averaging that amount per day. So if you have some more protein on one day but less on another, but it's sort of averaging out at your recommended total, then you should be on track to achieve your goal. In regards to meal-specific diet plans, it's not something that we've offered previously because there are so many other elements that influence a diet plan other than your genetics and your lifestyle data. So, I mean, things like food preferences, food intolerances, time, budget. Some people have big families that they have to keep.
Sure.
There's a lot of factors that go into creating a meal plan that influence it other than the genetics. So we provide the framework to allow our clients to use that to actually build their own diet plans or share it with a professional like yourself. One thing that we've added in the last few weeks is suggested recipes for breakfast, dinner.
Listen, the pecan loaf and the fig cashew cakes, I haven't tried them yet, but just the picture, I was like, oh my God, I'm so going to make that.
So I mean, the team's been working really hard since the start of the year to develop these recipes, and they're actually tailored towards your genetics. So if more of a certain fat that you need, then the ingredients and the amount of each ingredient will be adjusted slightly to reflect that as well. So although we stop short of really sort of dictating what a client should be eating every single meal, we provide the framework and then also provide some suggestions as to what they can be making.
No, I like it, and that's one of the things that I've said just in general is one of my approaches is that you need to be an active participant. There's no point, this is a slightly prescriptive and you want a framework, but you do need to get involved and kind of get your hands dirty, as it were. So then some of the other insights you offer are around lifestyle, about you sleep, and look, you should probably sleep more or less, or things like that, which is really useful. And then of course the really big one is the workouts, and that's based on the genes where you come up for with regards to whether or not I have the sprint or endurance gene, or muscle volume, how I respond with that. And so from there, and again taking into account what my goal is, because obviously if it's weightlifting then it's going to be a different thing. If it's bodybuilding. But if it's just weight loss, there's different recommendations. But you end up can be quite prescriptive here with regards to the type of exercise, the frequency, the tempo, the recovery rate, things like that. So it becomes very, very detailed, which is useful too. And what I like also is, so off the back of those three, you get those. That's the general oversight that you get. Then off the back of all that information, FitnessGenes, you can then buy what I call, I guess, the add-ons, where you can buy the programs, right, to a 4, 8, or 12-week program, which will take into account your results and your goal and give you a prescriptive plan with the exercise, diet, and lifestyle factors.
Yeah, so the workout insights work in the same way as the nutrition guide, where we provide the framework from which you can build your workout. So looking at training frequency based on your recovery, training volume, rest periods, tempo, that type of thing. So you can either use that as your blueprint to then design your own workouts and genetically optimize them. You can share them with your personal trainer, like I know some of your clients have been doing with you. Or for some of our sort of direct-to-consumer clients who perhaps aren't working with a personal trainer or feel that confident in actually designing their own workouts, we do offer genetic workout plans, as we call them. So we've got Get Fit, Lose Weight, Get Lean and Build Muscle, each of which follow the overall structure of the goal. So sort of the structure and the exercise type will be specific to the goal, but then the training frequency, the training volume, the rest periods, the tempo, everything that we provide insights on will then be tailored to the individual's plan. And each of those plans have progressions with them as well. So a client can choose to perhaps start with Get Fit, but as they sort of see improvements there, if they want to then change their goal, they're able to purchase additional plans as well.
And I have to say, the programs there are they're gym-based workouts. They're simple and basic, and I don't mean that. I actually mean that as a big compliment, because quite often, particularly in the absence of somebody overseeing your technique, but also you see what's quite disappointing, it's a worry actually, on social media and stuff, with loads of trainers putting out workouts and things like that to make them interesting. They're very complex, they look great, but for your average Joe, right, it's quite involved, and it almost detracts from what you're trying to do. So the workouts on the actual program are really just things that you'll definitely find within the gym, you know, the weights or the bench or these kind of things. They're simple exercise. You've got a brilliant description, the videos, and tell you about the tempo, the technique, the coaching tips, things to watch out for. And I thought that was really good too, because, you know, it doesn't have to be, you know, bells and whistles. You know, a good exercise can just be that, a good exercise, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we look at sort of quite foundational exercises and just making sure that our clients who are following these plans do have access to the type of equipment that you'd expect in a standard gym environment.
Yeah.
For one of the plans, the Get Fit plan, we also do have a sort of at-home workout. So if people aren't confident enough to go to the gym or don't have that type of access, then they can actually choose sort of body weight exercises that they can do at home as well. So yeah, we like to think that we cater for.
And then to add to that, of course, is and it's not just with regard to the workouts, but FitnessGenes, and particularly Dr. Dan, you particularly, but you're not, you know, we don't see you all the time on social media, but the support from FitnessGenes is unreal. I mean, Dr. Dan, you feel like he's in your head, in your living room, the support groups are fantastic. He's releasing little explanation videos all the time. I mean, if you weren't a scientist before, you know the stuff by the end. His passion is just, you know, really pulls you along. He's clearly a fit guy, but he talks with an understanding of all this sort of the regular obstacles and issues. You know, my mother, she thinks he's fantastic. She's really gotten along with it all. So the support in general from FitnessGenes community, not just through the website, on social media, and all those things is really useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our clients get invited to join our closed Facebook group where they can sort of share their progression, they can ask questions, and all of our team are involved in that group as well. So Dan will respond personally to a lot of the inquiries that come in, but we also have sort of a coaching team and a science team and a tech team.
A lot of them are quite generic questions.
Yeah. Everyone is involved in there, so we'll sort of all chip in where we can, because everyone within the team really lives the lifestyle. So really knowledgeable bunch of guys here. I mean, having our own in-house science team is a real plus for the company. So it's nothing that we outsource to anyone else or bring consultants in. We have a full-time science team, a load of PhDs, a real knowledgeable bunch. So sometimes the challenge is diluting all of the information that they know into something that is more accessible rather than trying to actually provide the details. So yeah, we've built a great community and a really engaged community. So we like to think that's one of the real pluses of it.
Well, and talk about being accessible. I mean, we had you and Dr. Dan came out here to my studio and did an event about a year ago now. And I mean, I joked at the time that he was, living the high life, LA and Surrey. But, the credit to him, the guy could be anywhere. And there he was talking to 16, 18 women, talking passionately about what he does, about exercise. In fact, it wasn't even a big sell, to be fair. It was just about exercise, nutrition, and we were talking about all of that. And the guy's clearly passionate. And one of the things that struck me, which really has impressed me anyway, working with the company, is exactly that. Because in this industry, there's a real need, right? So there's a lot of money to be made in this industry. But what happens is there's a lot of opportunists as well that take advantage of that need. And so it's quite refreshing to come across somebody who's passionately first and foremost passionate about helping people and about getting the message across. And certainly FitnessGenes has been that. And my experience in working with the company has been that. You know, you've taken on board every suggestion I've made, anything I've found, well, this isn't really working, I'm finding this difficult to communicate with clients. So, you know, I think that's an ethos that comes throughout the company, and that it certainly will reach the client for sure.
Yeah, and I think, especially speaking from a personal point of view, but I know I speak on behalf of a lot of other people in the company, sort of that interaction with clients is really, well, it's my favourite part of the job, where we can go out, we can do events, we can engage with people. And then when we're looking at product development, a lot of that is driven from client feedback. So developing that relationship with all of our clients who come through FitnessGenes is really important in terms of moving the company forward. But also it's the most enjoyable part, where we get to come out and spend time with people like yourself and some of the customers, some of the clients that you have at PTC as well. Yeah, it's just the most enjoyable part of the job.
Well, it shows. This really it's helpful. But so with FitnessGenes now, where to now? So like I said, on social media, I saw Dan is all over China at the minute, well, a while ago. What's next?
So we've just released our new testing panel. That was at the start of the year. But what that allows us to do, so we're using a platform that we're calling True Traits. And what that allows us to do is include more genetic reporting in our results, but also bring in other metrics, whether that may be blood data, wearable data, gut biome, that type of thing. So we're looking at other opportunities to actually broaden the amount of information and data we're delivering to customers. One of the biggest developments for the company this year was the sort of official launch of FitnessGenes Pro, which is our partnership program, which you've been involved with for some time now. But the education element of FitnessGenes Pro has been recognised by 3 independent qualification bodies in the US, AF, AA, ACE, and NASM. I'll have to look at my notes to remind me what they stand for. But that means that trainees in the US can actually get continuing education units actually going through our education platform. So that's opened up a few exciting opportunities in the US, including a partnership with Gold's Gym in Southern California.
Wow, fantastic.
So yeah, we're putting quite a large emphasis on that at the moment, which is my area of work as well. So that's quite exciting. Some cooler conversations happening there.
And so, Alex, am I right in still, well, you were the last time we spoke, well, originally when we spoke, but are you behind the newsletter? Are you still overseeing the newsletter, or have you now passed that down the ranks?
So yeah, the newsletter started with me, but that's been given to my colleague, Martin Heifetz. He's actually based down in New Zealand.
Well, okay, because what I was going to say was, obviously, if you go to fitnessgenes.com, you can buy the DNA analysis kit, and they're not any of the add-ons that we were talking about. Or you come to the personaltrainingcenter.com to my website, and there is a discount code there. If you click on in my website, if you click through, the link takes you straight through to their shopping basket. But once you're registered, you do get the newsletter, and it's a really good combination of just, hey, have you thought about this? Have you heard about this? The recipes are good. I liked it, so I was going to give you a compliment, but it's no longer yours anymore, so it's not done.
I submit the occasional blog, but yeah, the overall management is being handed off whilst I concentrate on a few other things. So, but yeah, I mean, we create all of our content in-house. We've got a good team and I mean, with genetic analysis, there's so much content there, and it's such a new area for a lot of people that there's always going to be something interesting within the newsletter, and that's sent out every week. It's not a hard selling newsletter.
Not at all. And I have to say that's the whole thing that comes across. It's first and foremost, you're about educating and helping, and then it's the sell. I mean, even those newsletters, you know, if anything, you're reminding of a new addition to the members area, rather than saying, hey, did you want to buy this? So absolutely. But I would say if you're thinking about it, maybe just follow you guys on social media at first, because you get so much information there, and I guess it won't be long before they're buying the kit. Alex, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm really pleased that I found you guys and that we're working together, and I look forward to keeping track of all the changes coming up ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, my pleasure, Michelle, always.
Thanks so much.